And here we go. Six o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 14th webinar in the Responsible Hillside Living series. This time around, we're switching it up, and we've invited our good friend Tristan Sabeeney to come and have a talk with us about contractors' realities. Tristan, can you give us a short little intro about yourself?
Sure. My name is Tristan Sabeeney. I own Sabcon Building Solutions. It's a building services company where we offer a full range of building services from new construction, renovation, repairs, maintenance. Our projects encompass custom homes, multifamily dwellings, commercial projects, retaining walls, light infrastructure work, property maintenance. So anything that you need to get your project done is what we do.
Oh, excellent. So you help a broad range of people.
Yeah.
And
So once you can think it, we'll build it.
And a large scale of clientele as well.
Yeah. So
And you mainly locate, and where are you mainly located?
Mainly located in the western and northern region of Trinidad. However, at the moment, we do have projects going on in south, central, at all corners of the island.
So you cover the island.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So let's jump into it. So this webinar is going to be kind of like a Q&A. So we encourage people who are on to kind of like, come off mute and ask a question. I'm going to start with two questions to kind of frame the conversation. So let's get into it. So Tristan, first question, just to kind of give people a kind of idea. What is the role and scope of a general contractor?
So basically we normally take it from the drawing. So once you have your designs, your engineering drawings, everything ready, you provide that to us. We will give you a costing, whether it be through a bid process or you just call us in and we just give our costing. And we get that project built for you all the way to turnkey.
Yeah. So you basically oversee and manage the entire construction process.
Yeah, so that's on site, in the office, all the behind the scenes that you may not see.
Right.
We
Okay.
worked direct with the architects, direct with the engineers, direct with the suppliers, subcontractors if needed, approvals if part of our work, interior designers, everybody.
Oh, nice. All right. And this is always a point of confusion for a lot of people. Can you explain the difference between a general contractor and a builder?
Okay. So builders are mainly on site. They mostly tend to deal with the on-the-ground construction works. Whereas a general contractor, as I had just mentioned before, deals with the logistics, the transportations, getting the material on sites, making sure the site is accessible, staying on budget, sourcing, um, arranging and selecting subcontractors, inspections, approvals, all the above.
So then would you say that if somebody is interested in a build and they just hired a builder, then they would be doing most of the management?
So if you hire just a builder, builders normally just supply labor. Everything else would mostly need to be done. And those builders are just following direct instructions. So, I mean, if your project is small enough, a builder alone is fine because you can get what you want, but you will have to be doing most of the overseeing, the quality control, selecting materials, searching for best prices. And you would just put yourself as the construction manager. You have the experience, but don't, that would be the role.
Yeah. So Nicholas asked if it's similar to project management. Yes, it is similar to project management. However, you could also have an independent project manager who is hired by the client as a kind of representative for the client to track everything, the whole process. And that's usually for larger projects.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any other questions? Want to jump off mute and shoot on at us? Nope. Okay. Well, moving on.
I have a question.
Oh, there you go. Hi.
Hi, my name is Liz. So I have some land in Pitti Valley that I live in Florida right now. So I plan to build a house there. My plan so far is perhaps build an ADU or a tiny house kind of thing on one side, and then build the main house, which will be a 3 or 4 bedroom. And the reason why I want to build a tiny house first is that I heard that in Trinidad you like really have to be watching everything when a house is being built. Everybody tells me I have to watch everything. And then the other reason is because it is cheaper than renting an apartment. And then later on, I can use that as an Airbnb for extra income when I retire. So my question is, as I'm exploring, I actually plan to reach out to you, Robert, when the time is right. What is the sort of step-by-step process summarizing how it works? So I get an architect first, and then I get to Town and Country to get it approved, and then the contractor. Sometimes people tell me I only need Town and Country if I'm getting a loan. How does that work in Trinidad?
You want to jump in?
Right, so I'll do the first bit. So you engage an architect, they would then manage the process of developing the design from planning all the way through to construction information. So I would encourage you to get planning because it's just the proper thing to do. And
How
then
long does
through
that take?
That usually takes, 2 to 4 months, or longer. But, once it's in there and it's being managed, followed up on, then it tends to, come through quickly once the information is correct. Now, after that process, you then have to get regional corporation approvals. So another kind of like month. So, but the thing is, while these things are happening, the design is progressing. So it's happening, they're overlapping, right? And then once we have all the design sorted and approvals in place, then we would go out to tender to maybe 3 or 4 contractors. And then from that stage, Tristan, you take it from there.
So from that stage, if it is that we are one of the contractors selected and given the tender by the architect, we would go through and give our costings. We would set up our company profile, all the information we have, and we would submit it to the architect or the bid committee. They will then run through, select who came in on budget. They would go through on who they think would be a good fit, and then they would give that to you, and you being part of the bid committee, you'll work with the architect and whoever else is involved, and then do your interviews, and from there you select a contractor. Now, if it is you do find a contractor you prefer to work with, the first step that they should do is they should point you in the direction of getting your designs. And that would be just going to someone like Robert and doing that process in that way. So
does that help to kind of give you some more clarity?
Someone told me that Town and Country takes over a year.
If Town and Country can take a year if you're doing it on your own.
I see.
Right. Typically, if people go the draftsman route, most draftsmen, like let's say a high percentage of draftsmen don't really just give you a set of drawings, and then you go deal with the planning applications. Which means if you're busy with life and not managing it and following up with it, it could take quite some time. Okay.
Okay. And I
Excellent.
know each house is different square footage and all of that, but how long does the process take? Let's say, I don't know meters, but let's say a 450 square foot small tiny house and then a 2200 square foot larger house. Like, what's the difference in time for each of them?
Tristan.
Okay. So as I said, it depends on a lot of factors. It depends
Right.
on if you're doing like, so for example, you could import a kitchen, which sometimes takes 4 months. If you're just going very bare minimum, very basic, you could get your project done in 6 months for something like 450 square feet. That's very tight. That's sourcing everything local, having everything ready and going. Normally, typically projects run about 8 months. And then depending on the difficulty, the size and stuff, you're looking at a year.
For
Yeah,
the
and it's
larger
also
unit.
yeah, it's also important to factor in lead time for things like, you know, your kitchens and so on. You know, because right now we are engaged in a project where we're waiting for a folding door for the
Correct.
last maybe 6 months. And the project is done, the clients are in and they have no door.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, somebody said Trini time too. I heard that it takes about
Well,
18 months, Trini time.
to be fair, that's not because of that. It's because, you know, things coming in, you know, take
Oh.
it has a long lead time.
So meaning importing stuff from outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. I mean, I plan to bring some things with me, hopefully.
Okay.
Because when I move, I can ship my entire home without paying fees, right? As
Right.
someone Trinidadian
Returning
relocating
resident.
back.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I plan ahead to know at least some things that I need so I can bring it all at once. Okay. Yeah, thank
Excellent.
you. This was very
Cheers,
helpful.
Liz. Happy to help. All right. So
Yeah.
the next question is, why is it a challenge to get realistic construction costs for residential homes?
So there's a lot of variability in material costs. So something like the price of the ton of steel, it varies. It goes up and it goes down depending on what month, if it's high season, if we have shortages, if suppliers are having supply chain issues, or if somebody just comes new and wants to undercut the market and put things in turmoil. These things happen. So it's not like you're just going to the store and picking up something off the shelf, right? But to help in this, the more information you have, the more accurate and exact you can be with a quote. So something like detailed drawings could help a lot. Something like getting a quantity surveyor's report, having the correct topography. All these things could help in getting an almost 100% accurate cost with no changes if possible.
I wouldn't go that close to 100.
But I mean, there's contingencies and stuff that the contractor will put in to make sure that this final cost is this final cost. I mean, all projects have changes, which creates the variations, but I mean, site conditions, all these things have to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. Okay. So it's what you're saying is that it's more difficult to be accurate with a price when the information on the existing condition of your site and what you want is not clear.
Correct. So a lot of people don't do all the actual necessary steps in order to get that realistic figure. I mean, soil testing and stuff is not the first thing someone thinks about when they buy a lot of land and design a house, you know, but it does determine if we now need to add auger piles, the strength of our foundation, if we need to go a block higher up, does the area flood? These are all things that change from site to site.
Okay, excellent. Anybody with any other burning questions want to jump on? If not, we'll just move on to the next question. No? All right. So Tristan, next question. what is involved in obtaining a quotation from a contractor, and what do you need? And do you need a quantity surveyor's report? That's the next one.
Well, that depends on the size of the project. So if the project is fairly small, a contractor with decent experience can cost it out himself. What's involved is one, the initial consultation, need to meet the client, see the site, and get a clear understanding of their scope and budget. Budget is important because things could go forever. You know, there's a point where you have to say, okay, we're gonna use these materials and this level skill of labor, because that will be exactly what's needed to get what the client wants. Quantity surveyors report, it is extremely helpful. It gives a more complex estimate where you can itemize a lot of, you can be very comprehensive. It is important, it is a costly thing, but depending on the complexity of the project, you will need it.
Yeah, I mean, it saves you, sometimes it saves you the variations down the road, which basically would be more than the cost of the report.
Definitely. I mean, it would be very difficult for a contractor to understand exactly what a client wants, and it would be very difficult for a client to understand exactly what the contractor understands. Because, I mean, something simple like, okay, build me a house. A contractor can build you a house, but you'd be like, okay, but there's no walkway around the house. And he's like, well, I didn't know you want a walkway. You know, these are all things that the drawing or the quantity surveyor's report could itemize for you.
Right. Now, another key question here is, what are the essential questions to ask a contractor when you're planning to engage with one?
For sure, you want to pick a contractor that has experience for what you want to do. Let's say a contractor only does commercial projects. He may not be the best fit for your tiny home or residential project because he's more accustomed dealing with commercial works. You want to ask about his insurance coverages. Let's say something happens to the contractor. How are you getting your project finished? What if you pay down payment and all these things? You want to get some sort of security. Definitely, you want to get references. I think referrals are the best way to gauge who you pick. For sure, you want to talk to someone who has dealt with this person or company before, so you can get a much more honest understanding. You want to ask the contractor, how does he manage quality control? You want to ask him, is there going to be subcontracting? And if so, how will he manage site security? Sometimes this could be a renovation where certain rooms are not being worked on, and you want to make sure that you can hold somebody accountable. You don't want to deal with a contractor and he says, well, that was that other company. You want to have one person responsible. There are other things too, like what is the change order procedure? Obviously, when you start building, you see things that you may want to do, or you get excited and you want to add on more stuff. You know, you want to know, is this a contractor that is very rigid? Is he going to work with you to maybe give you a little bit of goodwill, or is he going to be very argumentative? You know, all those things. One of the most important questions I would say you can ask is, how can you be a good client? This way you give the contractor a platform to set his boundaries and explain how he likes to work. And then you can determine his style matches my style, because not everybody works with everyone.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of things, I mean, with the entire kind of building process, it's a relationship with people more than anything, right? You'll be working with an architect for a year, maybe 2 years. You have to make sure you get you're a good match. And then something that I try to do, which I think has worked so far, is that you have to get buy-in from the contractor. You have to make sure that the contractor the contractor is not just, you know, he's like, when people come on site, they're not just coming to do a job, they're coming to build a house, they're coming to build this specific house that they like, and they'll give their all to build it. And then you have to kind of encourage that kind of camaraderie on site by including everybody and having everybody have their say and having a, you know, a larger vision that's shared with everybody. So I think that's another important thing to kind of do, you know, as well as, you know, just manage your relationships. Any other questions?
I had one more I could have added on.
Go ahead.
An important one, especially something I've experienced as well, is you should ask your contractor if he has the capacity for the job and if there is a better time to schedule it. You want to let the contractor know that you do want to see his face and you don't want this entire job subbed out. You want to hire his company and you want to make sure that there's clear, honest dealings with this. That way the contractor can explain, well, no, I'm going to put one of my project managers on the site, or no, I have this team that deals with these types of jobs and you're going to most be seeing their face. So these questions will help you exactly understand what you're getting. Because a lot of the time the contractor may just take the job because he's just running down funds, work just so.
Now, another key question just to follow up on that is, what are some red flags to be wary of when choosing a contractor?
Tons, but I'll try to keep it short. They go incomplete estimates. You don't want to get an estimate and it just says tile works with a price. It's not clear enough because something like tiles work goes by square footage, goes by tile size, it goes by design, and it helps with queries. You don't want to just see tile works $5,000 and then you are like, well, I wanted this design, and he's like, well, that's an extra, and this size tile is extra, and those things. So you want comprehensive estimates just with a little bit more details. You definitely do not want to deal with a contractor who's asking for very large upfront payments. You want to get a payment schedule that has a down payment and how payments will be released.
Right. I have another question here from Liz. Are there better months to start building a home? Definitely the dry season.
Right. So, I mean, dry season is best, but construction is year round. If you need a retaining wall during rainy season and it has to get done,
it's gonna
don't leave the land vulnerable. There are certain points where it has to get done, but if you can, dry season.
Yeah. Now the reason you want to do that is that that avoids delays. Rainy season, you'll get more construction delays, which may drive your costs up. Right? Depending, let's say in rainy season, you need a really good contractor who's monitoring the weather and phasing the work so that he is being efficient in the time he has. So you could start construction anytime, but it's advisable that you start in the dry season.
Does it have anything to do with when the roof is going to be on with regards to heavy rains, or is that just a myth that I've heard?
I mean, to an extent, yeah, but if you're, let's say you're digging a foundation on a hillside, you really don't want to do that in the rainy season.
Yeah.
Right. So there are many parts of the building, the groundworks. Yes, if the roof is on, you could continue working inside. So there's a point to that, yes. But that's not the kind of like one thing.
I mean,
anything to add?
Definitely, you don't want to do a roof renovation during the rainy season because there's items to be damaged. The only thing with roofing is you don't want your insulation getting wet. If it's the foil, it's going to change color. If it's the fiberglass, it's going to get damp. If it is, you're just doing a roof. I mean, it can go on, but there are other things on why you would not want to do the roof during rainy season. But as I said, if your house is flooding because you have that much leaks and you need to get it changed during rainy season, go right ahead. It has to get done.
Great. Any other questions? Right. Well, let's have a chat about budget. Now, what kind of advice would you have for clients for kind of trying to stay within budget? I mean, I think realistically, you could factor like a 10% maybe over, like a window, right? But what kind of advice do you have for staying within that window at least?
Definitely, you want to come with a realistic budget. You don't want to say you want to spend X amount and then you have maybe 50% extra that you just want to test and see where the contractor wants to go or where the architect wants to go or whatnot. You want to lay these things out from the beginning on exactly how much you want to spend because there's a lot of moving parts, and adding on certain stuff actually would make those things cost a lot more, because now you lose lead time, you have to start over there, you lose the mobilization, momentum. There's all these things. So being upfront, it helps with a lot of things. I mean, and it goes all the way down to the small details on like what brand of paint you would end up using to get the project completed. You want to be realistic too, so that you can also have enough money for finishings. A lot of people, when they spend money on block work and stuff, they add more rooms, they add more real estate, and then they can't finish the project. And then, or they have to skimp on the finishings. And I mean, you could build a perfectly engineered house, and then you have a hideous tile, and I mean, it throws the whole project. It doesn't go to waste, but it's not exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another factor as well is to kind of understand what, like, be clear on what you want early, and look at things and test ideas in the drawing phase. If you could work with somebody that has many ways of communicating ideas to you is also important. But also just trust the process as well, because when a building project starts and you see the slab, 8 out of 10 people are going to be like, the house is too small.
Yes.
Right? Once you see a slab on the ground, it's going to feel too small.
It happens every project. Most people cannot see elevation. So these rooms look very tiny, but as the time walls go up and by the roof goes up, you're like, wow, it's too big.
And sometimes people make a rash decision.
Yes.
At that phase. So an important thing to do to stay on budget is trusting the process.
Yeah. I mean, the design changes happen all the time, but you want to spend time on the planning stage, as much time as possible. You don't want to rush the process. You want to finalize the design so you can minimize change orders and then delete Pinterest.
Yeah, no, seriously, because things, everything on a drawing is an assumption until the ground's broken.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another reason why you need your design team with you during construction, because you need somebody who can, respond to the different things that may come up. Let's say you start excavating and the land slides away.
Right.
These are things that will happen. I mean, it won't happen if you had a geotechnical survey done. It won't likely happen, right?
Right.
But, there are tons of things that could happen to kind of change the outcome. And you need somebody who's with the skills to be able to, all right, here's a response that still stays within the vision of what you're trying to do. All right?
I agree with you there. One thing you don't want, you said someone who designs. You don't want to have your contractor who's a designer. I want to make that very clear. Your contractor is not a designer. He's not an engineer. He has experience and great opinions, but that is not his role and responsibility.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, there's some contractors who are really good at seeing
for sure
the problem in front of them. But what happens is that problem in front of you is often affects the whole, but you're not focusing on the whole. You need somebody who's zoomed out, who's focusing on the whole into that problem, so that it does not cause a problem to the whole. Now, another question is, how should an owner prepare for the construction process?
They should work with the contractor to set clear expectations of timeline, budget, and communication preferences. They should prepare, if it's a renovation, they need to prepare for the noise, dust, and disruption of life. And it's not a stressful process, but there is a lot of decision making that needs to be made, and sometimes in a timely manner. So while you do want to get a drawing and then just leave the entire project in the contractor's hands, they always be your preferences to make it your specific home or your specific project. So just try to be there and try to be timely with decisions and stuff once the process starts.
But what happens when you can't make a decision?
Well, it adds to. I see somebody hand up.
Wait, yeah, wait, 1 second. Let's see. You can come off mute and ask a question.
Hi, good night. My name's Kerry. I just have a quick question. In this economy, do you find it's more effective to buy land and build, or buy a house that potentially needs retrofitting for a lot of things and then renovate?
Oh, that's a great question.
Thanks.
You want to go or you want me to answer?
Well, I'll do a part and you do a part. So it's often a toss-up, and it depends on what you want. If you could find an already built house that's, let's say 90% what you want, and the changes you have to make are, let's say, more cosmetic than structural, then by all means, I think buying is better.
Sure.
However, if the market doesn't have anything that, really speaks to you, then you have more control over building something new.
Yeah. So
you have control of the budget, you have control of what you get, your vision,
right.
That is, right, Tristan?
So what we've seen is a lot of houses are sold when something dramatic needs to happen. So someone tends to sell when they need to change a new roof. And you need to keep that in mind when you're doing your real estate visit, because your real estate agent is not going to say, well, this house needs a new roof. I would just recommend maybe calling a contractor or educated friend who could come check through certain things and say like, okay, this house needs an exorbitant amount of work, because a lot of the times renovation projects come up almost to the same price as new construction. And at that point, there's a couple 100,000 more to get your own piece of land, and you skimp on a little bit of square footage. You might get something more personal into your preference. So I would go the route of new construction. If it is, you really have specific taste.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Liz has another question here. What's your opinion about people coming to contractors with a design they created in a CAD software such as Home Designer? Tristan, do you want to take that one?
If it is, you take it up on your own and you want to just show us maybe a bathroom layout, it's fine, it could work. But an entire home, I think it'd be better to give that to maybe an architect and let them put it on a more professional drawing level. But it's a good way to communicate to your contractor and your architect. It's a good tool.
Yeah. What I would say is that if you do that, then, when, let's say something happens and the plan doesn't work, then you'll have to make a decision on a response, which may cause delays, because then you're like, maybe not sure. And depending on the contractor, if it's a design savvy contractor, maybe you get away with it. But if you're using like a builder who's kind of like looking to you for like, what do I do? Then you put yourself in a kind of, no, you're at risk, because basically, if anything happens, you bear the brunt of the cost. That's another thing with like that's another thing with the difference between a builder and a contractor. A contractor, you have a bit of you have more security with a contractor. If something goes wrong, the contractor takes more risk than the builder would.
Correct.
Right?
So I mean, it feels
you are taking all the risk when you don't use a general contractor.
Right. So I mean, a builder is going with what's there, but a contractor knows certain things like countertop height is 36 inches, or they can see that these doors are not going to work because the door is going to open onto the bed because the room size and layout is not efficient. Small things like that, a contractor might pick up on, a builder may not. He may just build exactly what is given. And then there may be more intricate issues that could arise that somebody like an architect who has experience designing those things could pick up on. As I said, it's a great tool. It's good to start with, but
Yeah, if you have an idea, because what that does is it makes your conversation clearer when you speak to a design professional. Let's put it that way. Does that help you, Liz?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Excellent. Anybody, any other questions? We're coming close to the end.
Oh, we could answer this one again.
What's the difference between a contractor and a builder? Oh, we'll answer this one again.
Yeah. So the builder is on the ground. More like a foreman. He may pull up his hand. He's dealing with what's going on the site and all the moving parts on site, really. The contractor is responsible for procuring materials, making sure that they're on time, the logistics, site access, scheduling in subcontractors, dealing with your approvals, working directly with your architect, making sure you get inspections, all those things.
Yeah. In a nutshell, a contractor does a lot of management of the process and, you know, seeing all the things. So when you work with a builder, you're then in the place of as that manager, which is fine, and it's another way to save costs.
Yeah.
You know, but then once you have the time to do that, you're.
And I mean, you're gonna deal with the little headaches of, oh gosh, we needed to go the hardware twice in one day for screws. So the contractor, he's a little more organized with those things. He could go through the material listings and know what will need to be there, you know. Because the plumber could give you a material list for pipe, but it includes no tread seal or glue. That's something.
There's foresight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's foresight. There's planning ahead. There's scheduling. There's understanding how, you know, what happens next.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Let's jump off mute and shoot. Anyone? All right. Just a quick question on your process. Tristan, I think I'll probably wrap up with this one. Like, what information do you keep on site? How do you keep everybody informed on site when you're doing a project?
The drawing. So, I mean, I use this because I'm the contractor. So I have my iPad with digital drawings, the 3Ds and everything where I could take a more zoomed in look. But I do provide all my MEP trades with final printed drawings and that they could leave on site. So that's the electricians, the plumbers, the AC men, gas lines if needed, cameramen, all those things that need very, very specific measures. So I mean, masons, steelmen, carpenters, I mean, they can read the drawings, but it's not really their duty. It's more of the foreman and the contractor to direct where and how these things go. It's left on site. So paper drawings and digital.
Okay, nice. But now to close off, anybody with any question on that, or is everything smooth?
Hi.
Hi.
I do have one question. It's kind of backtracking a little bit. I was preparing dinner as I was listening, but
that's all right.
And for both of you, as an architect, Robert, have you ever worked on a design that was commissioned with another architect to tailor to the local landscape, meaning in Trinidad, and just kind of figuring out sustainable options for materials that are also local?
So we've ever worked with, let's say, an architect overseas?
Yeah, let's say, well, no, like, let's say I wanted to design a house. My husband and I are retiring in 3 years, and we would love to settle in Trinidad, which is where I was born. But let's say, like, we already have this beautiful design that was already pretty much built by another architect that was already, is that something that you've ever done or are willing to do as someone on the ground in Trinidad?
If it's interesting.
I know it is. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's no, we'd have to have a look at it and see if it's a good fit, and if it's interesting, yeah. definitely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely based on, you know, the expertise on the ground, it may not work at all, and we may have to start from scratch. So, yeah,
Okay.
but I definitely did want to focus on sustainability and sourcing locally.
Well, if you want to, you could, you know, we could have a look at it and we could give you some advice whenever you're ready.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. Okay.
We do a free virtual consultation. Anybody who wants to jump on a call with me, we talk about your specifics and we see how we could help you. You know, we're
Okay.
always looking to point people in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Another question here. Are there standard contracts that can be used for contractors and builders, or is it better to involve an attorney? There are standard contracts. The TTIA provides contracts, and a lot of people use versions of FIDIC.
Yeah,
which
I've gotten a lot of FIDIC contracts before.
government use a lot. So yeah, there are typical contracts that you could use that where you could have a lawyer look it over, but a lawyer doesn't have to draft a building contract. Okay. Can you provide a link to the contract? Sure. We'll send one out when we send the recordings out. You'll have a look.
Sounds good.
All right. Tristan, any last words for the audience?
I'll just give a tip on what helps us. Honestly, not to be biased or anything, but the best thing on a project is getting good quality architectural drawings. A lot of people come to us with draftsman drawings, and there's so much unforeseen, so much wrong measurements, and so lack of detail that it tends to stress the construction process because there's not enough foresight for the client and there's not enough information for the contractor. So a lot of costing has to be left provisional, and it could sometimes frustrate both parties because one, we would not know where the client wants to stop, and the client is not going to have a clear idea. So focusing on good quality planning, getting good drawings, you know, finding the right architect for your job is just so important.
Yeah.
It helps us. We build a lot quicker when we have details. We cost a lot easier, everything.
And I would say if you're interested in, you know, finding an architect, I think there's the typical thing people do these days is go on Pinterest and find a bunch of images. And mostly those, you know, your budget is under $1 million and you're showing $5 to $10 million images. There's nothing wrong with looking at these images, but what you need to do is really look at them and reflect on what it is you like in these images, and maybe write 2 paragraphs, really kind of sitting with it and thinking about it. And that's what you send to an architect and ask them to provide you with some images or provide you with, you know, something that matches your description instead of like sending all these images, because then you see if somebody really understands what you want. The key is to find people that understand you so that you could work together.
For sure. We tend to do that a lot. Clients sometimes come to us because they want to get something built, they come to the contractor. We have worked with a lot of architects, and we could sometimes point you in the direction of the best architect for your job. Based on what you like, because I could say, oh, XYZ has a very similar style to that. Oh, I could say Robert, he is a master of hillside. If your house is on a hill, you have to go in that direction and certain things, you know.
So again, we'll invite you to, you know, book a VC if you're looking to do a project, and we could have a conversation and we see how we could point you in the right direction. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. All right, Tristan.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
No problem.
And I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye.